made it to Katherine Gorge, guys. Park's pretty packed, but it's a good spot. The best thing is it's got a pool. It's got a little cafe restaurant down the bottom there, and it's got like a buffet thing you can get from up near the pool. So we're going to go have some dinner up there tonight. Should be good. Then we're off for a cruise for the gorges tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that, actually. I think we got the 2 gorge. We could only get in at 9 o'clock because it's pretty busy. So look how packed it is in here. People everywhere. But I actually think the NT is a bit busier than WA, to be honest with you. And, I think it's just all them border issues at the moment. People aren't sure where to go, so they're staying close to where they are. But, we're going to go down and check out this pool. Little buffet that they've got happening, eh? Bean after bean. There's the boss up there. She's booked out, so you got to book pretty early. We booked about 2 weeks ago for this, so we knew we were coming through, so we booked it, got in. It's been hard to get in, so make sure you book early, eh? Things might change, but they're going to change for a while. This is a cool setup. Like, it's still like 30 degrees here, eh? It's some crazy weather we've got, but I'm not complaining. I love the heat. Yeah, set up so here for recycling. It's really set up really good. We got a pool area.
Are you guys open?
Yeah, we open for dinner at 6 o'clock.
This is the
So
buffet.
they're open for drinks
Yeah.
and dinner at 6 o'clock.
Ooh. Look at the menu. Yeah. Signing in.
Morning time, morning. Today we're going to go on Katherine Gorge Tours.
So you come into the cafe. It's pretty cool. Inside you see here. Cafe, signing point over there. Sign in and you come down to the boats. So we're going on a 2-hour tour. 2 gorge tours we're going on. Look at them. They're cool little kangaroos. They're totally different colour to the ones at home, aren't they?
Keep up.
You have it. little lads.
Like that. See the real line.
Don't feed the kangaroos. That's a lot of bats. There's a sign. There's a sign up there that says "Be bat wise." Now I know why. Whew. You can smell it, can't you? Ooh, excited. Yeah, we're 2 hour. Morning.
That is looking like a beautiful dry season day. We have 14 gorges in total. So every gorge is just separated by a natural rock bar, one of which we're walking around today. So these cliff faces and these rocks are part of a greater slab of sandstone known as the Arnhem Plateau. So it begins here and stretches all the way across to Kakadu. It's actually so large that the whole of Kakadu sits on top of it. Whether it be Jim Jim Falls, Corinda, Jabiru, that's all sitting on top of this very same block of sandstone. The difference in the look is that we're virtually inside of it, driving down a series of fracture lines in the plateau, with the river flowing through the deeper sections. Now you might be wondering why we have those tyres on the left and those cables on the cliff face. So it's actually where we longline our fleet of boats in the wet season. Basically tie them up with a long rope so they can rise and fall with the fluctuating river level. As you can imagine in the wet season, being such a narrow gorge, after heavy rainfall, the river can fluctuate quite rapidly. It's actually not uncommon to get a 4-metre river rise overnight. So I guess with that said, here in the top end we do have two pretty distinct seasons, wet and dry. Fairly self-explanatory, I guess. The wet season is between October to April, and in that time we'll get around 1,000 mils of rain. So after heavy rainfall, the river can actually rise a metre an hour. Local favourite, your barramundi, but also tune, catfish, black and brony bream, serotonin, even 3 species of turtle. You get a freshwater prawn, those are terrapin, and freshwater mussels as well. Throughout the area you might notice the odd gap in the cliff faces. There's one up ahead of us here. It's called a sub-gorge. It's just basically a fracture line continuing through, but the river doesn't flow through it. So these sub-gorges do eventually build their way back up to the surface, forming something along the lines of a staircase down to the water's edge. So you can imagine it's how the Jawan people used to move from top to bottom.
It's a big freshie. You've been swimming with them, Sienna. Nice place, isn't it? Gorge, man. Size of that thing. Well, halfway through the gorge tour, you jump out and you've got to be at a 500-metre walk. Look at this. There's the other boat down there. It's hard to explain the size of this gorge. It is huge. Look at the size of that thing. And there's all Aboriginal artwork along this section of the walls. And if you can see it on the camera there. Runs right along through all here. There's more up in there. Just the size of this thing. Huge.
one of our tour guides got to star in it too. It's only around 3 seconds of screen time, but he's still pretty proud of himself. Now in 2007 we had another film made out here called Rogue. Now, Rogue probably wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea. It's actually a horror movie, just about a massive saltwater crocodile sinking a tour boat, and well, you can imagine what he does. So it's made by the same guy that gave us Wolf Creek, Reeking Clean. So you can imagine how it goes. But I don't mind to watch Rogue every now and then. It does show off some pretty beautiful Aussie landscape, and that too, it does have a happy ending. See, at least the tour guide survives, so all's well it ends well there with that one. Now the first film ever made out here, that was all the way back in 1955. It's an Australian classic called Jetta. So this one was filmed by Charles Chauvel. It was Australia's first feature film to be produced in colour. So Jetta features many parts of the whole gorge system, including this cliff face on the back left-hand side there. So that's called Jetta's Rock, also known as Jetta's Leap. Have a good old munch or chew on it. Eventually, of course, they realise it's not edible, they spit it out and swim away. But you can imagine they leave behind really large teeth marks, or pretty much bite it in half. So with that in mind, the rangers will assess the damage done to the floats to see if we have a saltwater crocodile around. So throughout the tour, guys, we do have a few indications as to how high the river gets in the wet season. And our first one is just here, actually. Got the head on the left, there's this rock ledge. In the wet season, it goes around completely underwater. So if you look at the lean of the trees on the right-hand side, notice they're all pointing downstream. We're bowled over by that harsh current, which goes up to around 20 kilometres per hour through here. That's when there was a series of earthquakes that caused an upheaval in the plateau. So it rose up above sea level, and under its own weight, it's split apart into a series of these fractures that overlap each other. Now, particularly in this second gorge, you'll notice that every turn we make is a 90-degree turn, turning from one fracture line into another one, just zigzagging through the plateau. So we can actually see the fracture lines from the river though. Because on the left-hand side here, you can see there's this split running down the side of the cliff wall. So that is a partial fracture. Basically, just a sub-gorge that didn't open up all the way, like the one directly in front of the boat there. But the partial fracture on the left is actually part of a fracture line. As you look directly opposite to the right-hand side, at the end of the river there, you see there's a sub-gorge where those trees are growing. So from left to right, that's a fracture line that opened up during the earthquakes. The river just made its way through the deepest section. The section we call the Katherine Canyon. So arguably one of the best sights the whole gorge has to offer. You can imagine the canyon has been used for a lot of promotions over the years. There's one in the early 90s when hosted Hey Hey It's Saturday, Daryl Summers was floating on an air mattress. And he said the famous words of "You'll never never know if you never never go." Now you can see there's a few people on the rocks behind us on the right, but they didn't canoe in. It's likely they walked in on the butterfly walk track. This sub-gorge on the right-hand side is called Butterfly Gorge, just because apparently someone saw a butterfly in there once. Now, to get out there though, it's around a 6-kilometre hike from the business town. So as you can see, you get right down to the water for a swim and a beautiful view. That's a depiction of the Long, who they believe carved the gorge out in his own image. I'm going to return to this corner and dug himself out a place to rest. So actually this is a really deep section of the gorge. Directly beneath the boat now, there's actually 35 metres of water. So it's thought that the Rainbow Serpent would go underground in places like this. Named after his daughter, Chambers Bay, Chambers Pillar, and that too, the Katherine River, named after James Chambers' second eldest daughter, Katherine. So this section on our right here is quite pretty. You notice all these droplets of water coming down. So we call this raining rocks. Quite a large hole in the wall, and just above it another smaller little cave. So on an average wet season, we get around 1,000 mils of rain, and I fill the second gorge around 3/4 of the way up this large cave on the left-hand side. But you'll notice there's a smaller cave above it. So January 1998, that little cave was actually 2 metres underwater. So basically just imagine the gorge here 3/4 full. So that 1998 flood was the worst for the century. And we actually had 1,000 mils of rain, entire wet season's worth, in only 3 days. So they say enough water was coming through the gorge to fill an empty Sydney harbour every 9 hours.
Floods through here in the wet season. This rock behind me, it's completely underwater, and they use power boats to go over the top of these through the wet season. That is a lot of water. It's huge. Pretty cool cruise. So we're on the second way back now, so we're swapping boats over. And then we're heading up around back to the main port, which is another half an hour from here. Look at that. Definitely worth doing, guys. She's a pretty cool cruise. Just to see the size of these gorges, it's billions of years old.